Hey guys, this is Nick with Cymatics and welcome to video number 3 in our Hip Hop Beat Making Foundations course. And in this video we're going to be talking about writing your melody. Obviously any hip hop beat, well most hip hop beats will require some kind of a melodic element. And we're going to be writing that using some plugins. I'm going to be using Omnisphere. It's a very common, very high quality synth plugin, has a lot of great samples in it. And it's very hard to go wrong with Omnisphere for sure. So let me first of all just find it in my project. There you go. I'm just going to be generally running through the kind of ideas I come across whenever I start working on a melody. Now, first thing you should do is pick a tempo. I'm going to write kind of a trap melody at 160 BPM. And the first thing I usually do is I find some chords that I like and just some basic sound in Omnisphere. So actually, let me just find a sound. So that's fine. Completely irrelevant at the moment because we can change the sound at any point. So don't be nervous about whether or not your sound is going to be good or not. So you can just change it if you don't like it. Generally, I just pick 2 chords. That's a very easy way of doing it. Within some scale, if you want, you can look up your scale. If you don't know theory, I don't think theory is important here, but it can kind of help the process along, but I'm not going to really refer to any theory. So I'm just going to write a basic kind of chord structure here. It's a pretty common trap motif. Cool. So what I do is at first I kind of outline the chords with my metronome, making sure everything is in time. And repeat that. And then here you can, I usually want to introduce some kind of variation towards the end of the phrase. I don't want it to just repeat over and over that way, so we'll use this last chord. Perfect. Cool. So once I have the chords down, then you can start to modify the notes, and maybe you don't want them to be full chords, maybe you want to arpeggiate them, which means spreading out the notes to play just the individual notes instead of the full chord. So that's probably what I'm going to do, but I want to first duplicate this track because I might use the full chords later. We're going to mute that track, and I want to have something like along the lines of this. That's called an arpeggio. And then while I'm doing that, I'm trying to come up with a top line, a top melody that'll sit on top of the arpeggio or on top of the chords. So something like that. So let's start writing that. So that's why I wrote these chords in the beginning, because I can just kind of move them around. Let's enable our metronome. So this is a pretty standard idea, just to go up and down the chord in this arpeggio. So I want to keep this, I want to keep all the notes extended all the way, because that way it sounds more full. Because otherwise if you cut the note off too early, it sounds kind of weak, so you want to kind of extend them. So maybe here we can even extend it a bit. To bridge that gap a bit, you know, this gap here. So we might not leave that there, but for now we're just sketching out our ideas. Okay, so let's copy that, paste it here, and then and actually I feel like we can just do the same arpeggio here, but earlier in the chord. And just repeat the same rhythmic process. So if we do this and listen to it, starting to get somewhere close to a reasonable melody. Cool, so let's just duplicate that again, because I'm just too lazy to load up a new Omnisphere, new MIDI track and so on. I'm just going to delete everything. And the reason I'm doing this is I can start writing a top line melody that'll sit on top of this arpeggio. And for that, I kind of want to use a different sound because it'll create more of an interesting texture in the melody if you have a bunch of different sounds that complement one another. And that's largely up to you, like which sounds you feel complement one another. Don't pick too many sounds that have too much high end or too much low end or anything like that. Try to spread it out. So if you have a sound that's kind of sitting in a darker range, maybe pick a brighter sound to sit on top of it, because that will make sure everything is balanced in your melody. So if we pick something, I actually like the sound, but I can use the sound match feature to give us something without looking for it too long. Just something like this maybe. Is this playable? Okay, let's try that. Whatever. Again, does it really matter? The sounds can all be changed. But I had this idea. So we can start off with the tonic here. The main note of our scale, A. And I like how that G sounds. And then we're kind of looking for a nice little story that we're telling with this melody here. And then we can do a little frill here. Na na na. And then you can choose to go either way. You can go up to resolve back to the first note. Or you can go down. I kind of like going up a bit more, but they're both roughly equal in my opinion. Let me just put a limiter on the master so that there's no digital clipping happening. Okay. So I don't like the sound very much of the melody. So we're gonna pick some other sound basically. Cool. I kind of like that, but that gives me some other ideas. So I'm gonna kind of write some more notes here to kind of bridge the gap between the melody and the arpeggio beneath it with some notes that are in the middle in between them. Okay. And we're going to reduce the volume of these notes a bit so they're not as important. They're not accented. So I don't like the fact that in this sound, now this gets a bit into the processing part, but look at this. This is too much sub for no reason. It's interfering. So I just filter it out with a high pass filter. So yeah, I'm just kind of filling out the notes a bit, looking for interesting harmonies. what I do from this point is, whoops, yeah, obviously save the project. But what I do from here is I typically duplicate it again and maybe find another sound that will fit better before resorting to stuff like processing, because I want to make sure all my sounds are good. So let me just look for another sound for this lead, because I know what it's going to sound like when I process it. It'll sound interesting, but maybe we'll find something better. Make sure it's part of the Omnisphere. I don't want to use the Keyscape library too much. So notice how that sound was too sharp and too transient, and we already have a sharp transient guitar-like sound in our arpeggio. I want to find a lead sound that's softer. To see how this sound would sound with the arpeggio melody that we had. So I'm going to duplicate it again, mute it, copy our arpeggio. Whoops, wrong MIDI track. Not bad. It's a bit too transient. I don't like how it's smacking around like that, but we can look for a few more sounds. But since we wrote our MIDI notes already, we can just have the freedom to select whichever sound we find interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice piano sound. These are all good sounds. They're all gonna work. Ooh. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. Let me just go into the synth. I like the warbling effect of it. It gives it a very nice vintage tone. Plus, it's just, I think, part of the sample. So again, see all that sub? I don't want that. And I'm gonna cut away a little bit of the high end, and I'm gonna reduce the tempo because I like the Okay. Now let's bring our lead back. Oops. I don't like that one. We can delete that. I'm gonna delete that note. So we have this problem where the lead sounds a bit too separated from the arpeggio. So how do we bring it back in? Well, the arpeggio is very spacey and reverberated, has a bunch of reverb on it. So logically, we should apply some reverb to our lead to match it, to make it sound like they're a part of the same landscape musically. So that's why I'm going to add a bit of Valhalla Vintage Verb. It's a great reverb plugin. That's starting to get very close, and also maybe a bit of delay. I'm not going to do any parallel tracks or anything. I'm just going to drop it on, and I'll do it before the reverb so that the delayed sounds are also put through the reverb. And I'll drop the dry wet here and then put the note value of the reverb to maybe 1/4 and make it ping pong so that it goes on the left and right channels, and you'll see what I mean by this. And then I would increase the high pass on the reverb, on the delay, and both the delay and the reverb actually, so that it doesn't slosh around too much in the low end. It's going to really screw up the mix. So that's what I'm doing here. So that kind of carries it along. So here, looking for that resonant frequency, I don't like it that much, so I'm going to cut it a little bit of it. Cool, and let's just add one more sound here. Actually, we can just use the chords that we used before and make it like a pad sound. But then we changed our arpeggio, so we should bring this over. And then we can use this third sound. First of all, we want to change the sound to something a bit more spacey, because I want it to be more of a supportive sound. It doesn't want to kind of jump out at everything else, because we have some decent sounds that are performing some important roles. We don't want to introduce a third big sound. We want to just have a spacey pad. Let's try this pad. Yeah. That really fills out the space for sure. Let me try transposing it an octave down. Now it starts to be a bit too obvious. So what I don't like here is these middle notes are a bit loud. I'm going to bring them down a bit. See, that's as soon as it just jumps out when you compare it to the quieter version. And I'm doing that because I just noticed it was jumping out of the rhythm a bit too much. So changing the velocities around of the notes will really increase the realism of your sample. And I want these top notes to be accented because they're the peak of each mountain here. That's really good. And then we're going to go into our lead and just increase the attack of the lead a bit so that it's not snapping too much in the beginning. Just like that. Nice. I want to put a bit of RC20 on this lead because our main piano is so warbly and all over the place with its pitch, because it's so vintage sounding, that we can put a little bit on the lead to mesh them together a bit better. So that'll be here, RC20. It's a very nice plugin for making things sound old. And I like the default preset. Turn the flux down of the noise. I don't like when it whooshes in and out too much. And turn up the tone so you can hear the noise in the high end, because the noise of the RC20 actually has a lot of sub-frequencies which are not that good for your mix. Let's make sure our pad has no low end rumbling. And I really don't recommend you do this to everything because you're going to kill the mix, but only do it with sounds that don't need low end and have that low end, because it's going to screw with it. Because taking out this low end does not do anything to the sound of the instrument. It just removes that problematic area. So that the low end of our piano, of this arpeggio, can do the work. Cool. So that I would consider to be roughly finished. It's never really finished, but this is good enough for now. There's a lot of other tricks you can do. So for instance, we can group all these into one bus. Let's make sure everything is labeled, by the way. So we're using the lead, we're using this pad sound. We're not using this duplicated. So here I can actually take the attack of the pad and increase it even more. And if you want to do that across two different modules in your synth, you just click the little chain icon here so that the attack increases for both of them. So it kind of just swells in like that. Cool, and try some halftime on it. I like to increase the sustain, try different time denominations. It's interesting. Try the 1.5x. Gives you a triplet feeling. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool too. It kind of gives it a darker vibe for sure. So what I do is I usually resample the audio that I like here. Just record it for later if I ever want to use it. And I also record a quote-unquote B section without the lead. Just have the chords and the arpeggio. So yeah, that's how we write our melody, and we're going to be using this melody and putting a beat under it in the next videos. So yeah, thanks for watching this one. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.